Hello and welcome to the Blood Reds Daily News. I'm joined by my fellow Liverpool.com writer Dave Comerford, and obviously no surprise as to what we're talking about today. Last night, news broke of Liverpool sort of cooling their pursuit of Jude Bellingham, and it seems like they're going to be looking at alternative targets and potentially two or three midfielders rather than just the one, and putting all their eggs in the Jude Bellingham basket. What do you make of the news, Dave? Was it a surprise, or did you see this coming already?
Oh, I mean that's tough. Was it a surprise? Yes and no. Yes, because Liverpool aren't realistically going to be in the Champions League. Bellingham is going to be the most expensive player in Premier League history if he does come to England. Potentially sort of the fourth or even the third most expensive player in football history. Full stop. So financially, there was always a chance that it was going to be too much, but a surprise in that the pursuit seems to have gone on so long. And for me, the main problem is, why has it got to mid-April, before Liverpool have made this decision, or certainly before this decision has come out? Because it's been quite clear for a while that the problems that could be associated with this deal, really. So I think the timing is what makes it a surprise, and the fact that the pursuit was kind of allowed to almost go on so long. You almost got to the stage where you thought Liverpool are going to try and make it happen anyway. They're going to try and convince the player, and then they won't get into a bidding war with the two clubs, and just try and maybe raise money through sales and really kind of go all in on the window, make as much money available as possible. So it wasn't just Bellingham coming in, but it's I'm a bit conflicted on it from that standpoint, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, in terms of a PR move, this is a kind of disaster for Liverpool, because you've been talking about this player for years, or essentially years, really, about coming in, bringing him to Anfield. Obviously, last summer, the whole reason why Liverpool didn't go for a permanent midfield option was because they were supposedly holding out for the right candidate, and the right candidate at the time seemed to be Jude Bellingham. And obviously, we'll wait and see what happens and who the alternative targets are. Perhaps they weren't available either in the summer window last year, but it does just feel like Liverpool kind of shooting themselves in the foot in terms of in front of the fans and the PR side of things. It looks quite bad for the club to make this decision so late on as well. I mean, we've only got less than 2 months now until the transfer window opens.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why the timing was a shock, I suppose. There's people in sort of the comments saying, do we think we're still in the race? And maybe suggesting that we can still kind of convince Bellingham. I think really based on the volume of reports yesterday, it's kind of hard to believe that anything else other than that the race is over from a Liverpool standpoint. Unfortunately, obviously there's a possibility maybe that it is kind of posturing, but I don't necessarily see that being the case. To be fair, it does sound like a bit of a death knell, and realistically, it's not really. Maybe some people saw this coming as well. But yeah, on the point about kind of the planning and last summer and stuff, I think that is the main problem. Is ultimately this is a justifiable decision in my eyes. As much as I would have loved Liverpool to get Bellingham and I was desperate for the signing, your head is kind of saying to you, if the budget is basically 150 million, better to spend that on 350 million players than Bellingham, and then maybe one sort of 30 million player or something like that. That's probably a smarter approach to a transfer window. The problem that Liverpool have is that last summer they didn't sign any midfielders, with the exception of Arthur, but that wasn't even a permanent deal, because they were waiting for this transfer. Bellingham was the one in midfield, just like Van Dijk was the one in defence. And when you wait, you've got to get him. Liverpool did that with Van Dijk, but they haven't done it here. And I think this season has been, Liverpool have been in disarray. on the field and off the field. And this is probably the worst it's got in terms of, the off-field side, because Liverpool for so long, I think we've all viewed them as a very well-run club. Almost the envy of other elite clubs in terms of how well they operate, certainly in the Premier League. But this is just an absolute mess. It really is, to be in this position. And it's the moment for me that confirms that it is just sort of chaotic behind the scenes, and we urgently need order to be restored, because the planning is just up in flames, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that Liverpool are still yet to appoint a successor to Julian Ward as well as sporting director. We'll wait and see what happens there. But, we are creeping upon the transfer window now, and the fact that there's still no sporting director, that's a bit of a concern as well. But like you said, back to the Bellingham topic, if you do take the emotions out of it, I think you could see that it is the smart move to, given Liverpool's situation at the moment. You can kind of see, I don't think Bellingham coming in will solve all of Liverpool's midfield issues. I mean, he's still a very young player. He's talented, no doubt, and he's got huge potential. But him alone is not going to solve Liverpool's problems, particularly, I think, in terms of Fabinho's downfall this season. Liverpool still need to buy a backup to him. So getting 2 or 3 players, especially with the wealth of talent I think that's available, midfield talent available in this market. Talking about Kepa and Thuram, Sofiane Amrabat, who did well at the World Cup. I think this season Dominic Szoboszlai is probably going to be available as well. Manuel Ugarte at Sporting, and then you talk about the homegrown players as well, the likes of Mason Mount potentially, ready to move on from Chelsea. It's a lot of talent available who can come in, and they are almost, I wouldn't say necessarily in the same level as Bellingham, because Bellingham is a generational talent, but they're close to it, and they can probably make the same sort of impact, and some of them might even be better fits for Liverpool than Bellingham.
Yeah, I think there's still potential for this window to be exciting. You mentioned the wealth of options that are available there, and really kind of good options. But I suppose the problem is, because fans have almost not been promised Bellingham, but the message for so long has been, waiting for Bellingham and putting funds aside. They've got every right to be angry. And as much as, in the cold light of day and with kind of your reasonable hat on, it probably is the better approach given the budget Liverpool have. Why are you putting out those messages saying that, Bellingham's your top target, Bellingham is the one you want, Bellingham's the player Klopp is desperate for, and then not delivering them? They've boxed themselves into this corner, and the backlash from fans is inevitable. It's obviously already happening, and it's completely justified. But on the point about kind of whether bringing in Bellingham and just kind of going all in on him would have been sensible, I mean, you'd kind of look at it and say, I talk about Liverpool being a poorly run club. If you're pinning all your hopes on him, really, and he's maybe one midfielder that comes in, and then you get, say you got Bellingham and like Conor Gallagher or something like that, because that might be where your budget stretches to, then you start to think, well, is that really enough to change, like to transform it? And it would certainly improve the situation a lot, but we want Liverpool to be title contenders again. We don't want them to just be, maybe Bellingham's a player who puts you back in, fourth, but you need it to be more comprehensive if you're going to be kind of up there challenging Man City, maybe Arsenal, whoever's up there next season. And that's where kind of the multiple midfielders approach may kind of serve Liverpool well. I think as well, we've said throughout this that, because, we've written so many articles on our website about, how Bellingham would fit and things like that. But so you don't want to just come across now as sort of saying, walking all that back and just being like, oh no, we never really wanted him anyway. But one thing we've sort of said all along is, if it's just going to be Bellingham alone, then it almost defeats the points a little bit. You need to surround him with players. It needs to be an actual comprehensive rebuild. And that's hopefully what Liverpool can do now, albeit without kind of the one who's supposed to be, or ideally would have been, the centerpiece of it.
I mean, I suppose the silver lining in all of this is Liverpool's alternative targets don't tend to be that disappointing. I mean, if I recall, Mohamed Salah was an alternative, I think, to Julian Brandt.
Yeah.
That worked out well, and obviously Diego Jota has done well in comparison to Liverpool's primary target, Timo Werner, who didn't really cut it at Chelsea.
Ismaila Sarr as well, who's obviously still in the Championship with Watford. He was on that attacking shortlist, I think, as well.
Exactly. So it doesn't seem to work out too badly for Liverpool when they do go for the second option. And I think to end on a positive note, let's hope that's what happens with Bellingham and this sort of transfer saga. Yeah, thanks, David, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And as always, do check out the rest of the Blood Red content going out today and all the written content on liverpool.com as well.